Good morning. The clip you're about to see is a discussion about how cognitive behavioral therapy can be very beneficial to a developer. The clip is an outtake from a stream I did with Mayuko, iOS engineer, YouTube creator, and all-around awesome human being. You can find the full stream recording in the episode description. In the episode description, you can also find links to all the interesting things we talk about. Before we get on to the clip, I would like to thank today's sponsor, Brilliant. Brilliant is a service for learning computer science fundamentals and math thingies and like stuff like that you might have been procrastinating on and that is hard to learn through videos and just like reading your way through it. Brilliant has these interactive tutorials of increasing difficulty to learn in a very satisfying way. It is a great service that I'm so proud to have as a sponsor of the show. If you're thinking about like brushing up on any of these concepts, just get a Brilliant subscription. You can find a link in the episode description. That link tells them that you came from here, but that also gives you a good discount on their annual subscription. Please do check them out. They are amazing. Now on to the show. There was one question I liked here by Tobu. What do you both do to maintain your mental capacity for keeping developing? People drinking or with health bad habits, did you see impacts in their work? This is an interesting one, I would say. Like, I actually I haven't like mentioned this at all on the stream, but I just started a couple of months. I started seeing a therapist.
Awesome.
And he is like this super businessy cognitive behavioral therapist. So he's like none of that like talk about your mother kind of thing. He's like let's identify a problem and murder it, you know.
Oh my god, about you.
Yeah, exactly. So he just like walk me through your life and why you're here and like. So basically the first session was like diagnostics, basically just figure out like a sub area that I want to work with, which ended up being procrastination. Like I have this thing where I can like, especially when it comes to talks and stuff, I just like endlessly like fill the void until I absolutely have to work with it. I just fill it with like Netflix and garbage and idling. And which of course creates like massive energy drops and anxiety. And then the next session was like he walked me through like how this mechanic works, like why you start postponing things. So you have like you have this habit like a snoozing, for instance. So alarm rings in the morning, unpleasant. You hit snooze and you instantly get a relief. It creates a positive emotion. You get like anxiety and like disappointment about yourself, negative emotions, but those come slightly later. So your brain doesn't actually learn from those. It learns from the first response. And that is why snoozing is such a super addictive thing. And this, of course, like sounds obvious, but like once he actually breaks it down and like I can apply it to like my problem areas, like it's really helpful. And then the way you break it is that you start a new habit loop around like you stay in the frustration and the pain of like pushing yourself up in the morning, and then you just stay in that frustration until you get a reward, like feeling good about yourself or like something, and then you start associating the frustration with the reward instead. So it's sort of like playing Dark Souls or like some like 8-bit computer bullshit game, those that were insanely hard, where you spent hours in a frustrated mode because you knew that eventually there would be a payoff in the end. And it's been like I think that is like my tip for like mental capacity, like go see a therapist. It's really nice so far, actually.
Wait, that whole reward system thing makes total sense though, because you do get it's like on social media where like you get
Oh yeah,
dopamine, hit dopamine, and then you're just like, oh my God, I spent 30 minutes on Instagram and I feel shit.
exactly. And those are so
Yeah.
good for hiding like anxiety. So if you're having like
Mm.
anxiety or something like about stuff that you should be working, then you can use these dopamine high things like Instagram to give you like this buzz and hide like any kind of work under.
Yeah, wow. I feel like I just like realized a lot of things about myself by learning about that. Because like when I'm anxious, I'll go on Instagram to get dopamine
Yeah.
rushes as a way to like get out of it. And I always just like, why do I do that? I know I hate this, but like I do it anyways.
Yeah.
This has been therapy with MPJ and
Yes.
Mayuko.
Yeah. Exactly. But it's like, and it turns out that this is how all addictions work. Like
Yeah.
cocaine addiction, and also like I've also learned that domestic abuse is
Mm.
almost always a mechanic in the same way because it gives you like this power rush to
Oh,
be violent with your partner because you don't have control, and then like as soon as you even threaten with violence, or might also be like when your partner like threatens with saying like threatens commit suicide is another thing. It just like gives you like this extreme power rush, which creates like a
mm.
very strong habitual loop that is very alluring.
Yeah, that's so important to know about your own brain too, because like we often, or at least I often think that like my brain is wired to do what's right and like get reward from good things, but really like good things to my brain is like yeah, sometimes really bad things of like feeling like you're in control or getting dopamine rushes and like little hits of joy, which yeah does form addictive things, and that's why it's so hard to overcome them because you're literally like rewiring how your brain works.
Yeah, Slim
Yeah.
just points out that the power of habit is a book that talks about this.
Oh, I've been meaning to read that one for a long time.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, but I would totally plus one the whole therapy thing actually for mental health
Oh yeah.
because I've been going to therapy for like 2 years now. It all really just started because I had bad anxiety and panic attacks, and I was like, I really hate feeling like I'm gonna die in the middle of like wherever I am, even though I'm totally not. And then so
Can
I've
you talk
been
about like what a panic attack feels like for like a person like me?
yeah. Yeah, I didn't know. So like my very first one, I didn't know that I was having a panic attack. It kind of just feels like you're hyperventilating and then you're not getting enough oxygen to your brain, and then it kind of feels like you're having a heart attack, even though you don't know what a heart attack really feels like.
Ah,
But you get this immense sense of like your body is gonna fail you right now. And it's
God.
terrifying because you literally just feel like you're gonna die, but really you're just like not delivering enough oxygen, like you're everything like all of the like the fight or flight response is kicking in like hardcore, except like for me it happens in places where it's like I'm just like in a car like going home, and so it's these really non-threatening places
Jesus.
uh
That sounds
and
so like so
non-threatening
terrifying and so
situations.
interesting.
Yeah, and what's really scary about like panic attacks is once you have one, then you get anxious about having
Having
another
another,
one.
yeah.
Yeah, and then it actually kind of can create this chain reaction. But it's just like anxiety is my therapist explained it as like anxiety is like when you just like feel like you have way too much, or maybe a stress. You have way too much that you have to do that you don't feel like you can overcome, and like your body just has responses to things that really are not threatening, but like we've evolved to have all of these responses because there used to be actual credible threat,
Ah.
but now we don't. And so it's just like all these chemicals and stuff are bouncing everywhere, and it just feels really bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Idiot says like the first time I had a panic attack, I thought I was having a heart attack. It's super scary.
Yeah, it's terrifying. And we kind of like toss around like panic attacks and stuff, but it's literally like I was like I think I was with my husband both times, and I was like I'm gonna die right now. But it's like I'm like looking at myself. Sometimes I look at myself in the mirror when it happens, and I'm just like my face is not turning pale or blue.
Okay.
all of my body, like my body was working, I'm breathing, I'm fine. But it only lasts like 10 minutes, so it's very temporary, which is actually kind of one of the tricks to learning how to overcome it, of like it's not going to happen for very long. And if you kind of, it like, you can't, it's hard to get out of it because you don't really have control over what's going on in your body. But if you wait it out, it goes away.
Oh,
But
so
then
they
I
don't
get like,
really they don't really give you any tooling to break it. It's more like being able to like ride it out.
kind of, yeah. There's definitely tools for like how to prevent them before they even happen, but like once they happen, it's kind of like, oh, you kind of just have to sit it out. So like my anxiety kind of stemmed from that first panic attack that I had, and then I was just always worried. I was like, I'm gonna get another panic attack. I'm gonna get another
Yeah.
panic attack. And then sometimes I would just feel panicky, and people feel anxious in different places. Like some people feel anxious in their heart, some people feel anxious in their head. Sometimes it's the gut as well. And you just feel worried for no reason. Like it'll be like, oh, like I really have to go to the bathroom,
Yeah.
even though you don't have to go to the bathroom. And then you worry about needing to go to the bathroom, and then you just like feel bad. So that was like a whole cycle
Yeah.
that I really wanted to break because I was like, fuck, I just really hate feeling like I'm afraid of dying like tomorrow. Like I'm just gonna have a panic attack and pop dead. And so I started going to a therapist specifically for that. And it was very pragmatic because there's a whole thing called cognitive behavioral therapy
Yeah.
called CBT.
Yeah.
And that teaches you kind of like a lot of different stuff for how to manage it, which I'm not going to try to explain because I'm not a therapist, but it kind of started there. And then I stopped for a little bit, and then I started going again, not because of anxiety or anything, but more so just because like I still have little bits of anxiety, but mostly just because like I just need someone to help me talk out like my feelings and thoughts. And my therapist is kind of like that, like tell me about your family relationships kind
Oh.
of person. But she really helps to ground me. Like sometimes I'll just be like, life is terrible and I hate this. I'm gonna move somewhere tomorrow and change who I am, blah blah blah. And she's always like, hold on, like let's talk about where this is coming from. Like probably something to do with like family or like past traumas. Um, but it really just helps me to be like think about my feelings more constructively, and like have the tools to I guess like treat myself better. Like one of the things that I do is like I beat myself up about things, which I mean everybody does. But there's things called cognitive dissonances where you like the reality in your brain is so drastically different from the reality of what's actually happening. And so things like saying that you have to do something or that you need to do something when you don't really need to as a way to bully yourself to do things is a cognitive dissonance.
Like I've always wondered how therapists identify cognitive dissonances because they don't actually see your life. They just see you
That's so
talking about your
true.
life. That's kind of like
Mhm.
do they just have like this skill to sniff them out, or like do they actually
I
like
bet they do. There must be like words or like body language. I don't know. Sometimes I'm just like, how did you know that? I've only talked to you like 3 times.
it's interesting. Like, can I ask you something about like, does your like because my therapist is also a cognitive behavioral therapist, and there's this thing that he does that is like when he explains a concept, he goes like la 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 and talks about the concept, and then like he has talked about something earlier, and then when he gets to that thing, he doesn't like repeat it himself. He poses that as kind of like a quiz question for me. So it's kind of
Oh.
like, oh, and what was that then that I talked about before? And pauses. And like so and he lets me
Oh.
finish the sentence. And that's such a like great way of explaining things because I tend to be like very oratory. And like
Mhm.
it gets too stuck in my own things, like David here pointed out, like let the guests speak. Like I tend to like get stuck in that, and that is such a good way of like instead of explaining it, just ask a little question and like let the audience like go like
Yeah, because what's important is for that other person to connect the dots, to
yeah
be like, hey, remember this other thing, remember that one thing? And then you give it to them to be like, no. connect the dots and put the puzzle pieces together, which is really genius. My therapist doesn't do that, but that's really smart.
Uh, uh, Tobidim says, I can't share too much, but you make me considering going to a therapist. This is a self-development stream because it feels good. Actually, like
It is now.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, we accidentally turned into a therapy stream. I love it.
Yeah, but I feel so fortunate that I can go to therapy and that I live in a country where these services are available, because certain places it's like really looked down upon, and like
Yeah.
I don't really like I was very kind of hesitant to talk about therapy at first, because I was like, I'm not like, there's not really anything, like I don't have like it doesn't feel like my situation's that dire, so why do I need to go to a therapist? But I feel like everybody benefits from going to therapy.
Yes.
Even if you don't have a mental illness at all. It's literally just like, I mean, sometimes when I just get really like depressed about the news, as it happens, all the time now, when I go to therapy, I just feel like I have a lot better sense of how to manage it. And really, like, there's just a lot of feelings flying around, us being in the information age, that I feel like going somewhere to help you be productive with your feelings is like so important, because we're productive about literally everything else. So
yeah, like, and I think that like being productive is like this interplay of feelings and behaviors that we need to manage. Like I actually like I view my therapy like as something that I primarily do for work. I think that there are issues that I will move on to for personal, like more private things later. But right now, like my biggest thing is like that my weird behaviors are preventing me from working. Like I had really bad problems with anxiety last year or the year before that, because like I had a period where I got some serious tinnitus from after a show, and like unless you know how to handle that, that is absolutely devastating to always hear this noise, and you don't want to hear this noise, and there's no way to escape this noise, and it just like creates this loop of you being like frustrated over it, which because of how tinnitus works, that increases the noise. So it's like it creates this horrible feedback loop. So I can really understand how this leads to some people committing suicide. And I never got a panic attack, but I had like these episodes where I just like couldn't really figure out what to do. It just paralyzed me. And I found this YouTube channel where there was this guy that spoke really slowly and but worrying things. And he taught me this exercise where you just get one bucket with ice cold water and then one bucket with really hot water. Take off your socks and then you step into one, step out of it, step into the other, step into and that just jolts you back into reality and out of your own head. And it was like just remarkably good exercise, and it's just good to know that I have that exit if I get into that worrying loop at some point.
That's intense. That sounds like walking on coals kind of intensity.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is like you have to, that's like the way that you connect your body and your mind, where you're like, when you get really heady about stuff and you're like, oh my God, like I can't escape my mind, realizing that it's just like, oh, right, like I'm connected to the rest of this and like I'm feeling things. And then your brain responds to those stimuli that's happening outside.
No, my name is Judah, as says, I imagine that limiting the amount of instant attention triggers would suit greater mental health much more. Completely pseudoscience, I guess that gotta check this now feeling is connected to fight or flight response, and you can't put yourself in that for every third comment on FB. Yeah, that's not a completely unreasonable theory, right?
Yeah, I think that's real. I wonder if it's like the whole thing you were saying about addiction is closer to, like, I mean, addiction is like a mental illness, and I think I don't know if it's actually backed by science and research, but like the fact that social media and like pings and constant stimulus gives dopamine rushes is an addictive, or creates addictive behaviors, and then that creates like a whole world of things.
But I mean, like I think that social media has not become like I wonder if it's good enough yet to create like a proper addiction, because we definitely have gaming addiction. That's a real thing that destroy people's life and you get caught up in. But I think that I wonder if that is because like that is it's treated that way because it costs so much money that it like eventually
Oh.
pulls in your family and you start to like destroying your family. And like if we have like like alcohol addiction and drug addictions, like they kind of like have this extra component that destroys your life. Social media is like a little bit, it doesn't have that extra component, and that is why we can't really see how damaging it is, or like that. And maybe that's why we can't diagnose it yet.
Yeah, that's true. That makes sense. It's interesting because there's like the nature of social media is that you're communicating and are having relationships with other people too, versus like alcohol and drugs, you're having relationships with like things instead of
Yeah,
people.
but like alcohol has that quality. Like when like it's a
Yeah,
super, like that is a super 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 social drug.
that's true. Yeah, yeah. Because most of the time, well, I guess, yeah, I don't know too much about alcohol addiction, but I always kind of had the, like, when I think about a really bad addiction, it's like you will use like an unreasonable amount of money to get the thing that you
Yeah,
want. So, like, you'll spend a lot of money on alcohol when you maybe don't have that money, or you spend a lot of money on drugs more so than like food or
yeah,
something. But we don't do, yeah, I guess it's like, it is kind of like a less evil thing, but it's still like who was it, Tobudim was saying, creates that like fight or flight
yeah.
response just enough that it creates this like kind of mild anxiety about stuff.
Yeah, it's I wonder how it's connected. Like it would be really cool to like I would love to have it like a therapist on stream. Like CBT therapists are so
Mm,
nice. They speak in this like
yeah.
very like all the CBT therapists I know, they speak in a very like certain way, like very exact
Mhm.
and like very. What do you think? Like, why do you think that happened? And like I really like the way of speaking.
Yeah, I feel very safe with my therapist.
Tobidim asked, what good did anxiety do for you? I mean, there's not only bad things about it, it's a natural thing, natural way for us to guide us
Mm.
to a safe spot or something. Like, would you say that you're like, how do you deal with like, are you friend with your anxiety, or like, how do you view it?
Yeah, I feel like it come like my anxiety, I think I feel a lot more motivated to be on top of it now, I guess. Well, so I guess there's two things. One is I check in with myself a lot more to make sure that I don't drive myself to the ground, because that's when I'm like really stressed out, or if I am not getting enough rest or
Mm.
eating well enough, like I know I get anxiety. So I have a relationship with it, and that it's like that far away friend where I'm just like, if I get anywhere close to
Yeah.
you, this is a bad sign. So if I'm close to you, I'm gonna take a few steps back. So it helps me to just like, yeah, be more aware of my body and mind. And then number two, in a weird way, anxiety makes me more prepared for stuff. Because I
Oh.
think that anxiety kind of comes from a place of like nervousness, actually, for me, where I get really nervous about like, oh, X, Y, and Z. And then when my feelings get bigger than the logic, that's when it turns into anxiety. But then if I am prepared enough, then I feel like I can get on top of it. So being prepared for meetings, for presentations,
That's
for
interesting.
certain things. Yeah. And so it's like I really don't want to get anxious about certain things. And so it's again that friend
Yeah.
far away. It's like if I get anywhere close to you, I don't like you. So like it makes me more, it makes me a better planner.
Yeah.
Which then makes me kind of be like, oh man, like I wish I could live life more spontaneously and not need to plan a lot. So that's kind of what I've been doing recently more. But it has helped me to just like get on top of my shit.
That's interesting. So it's kind of like you can use it as a little bit of a warning bell
Mhm.
when you're under prepared.
Yeah, I did the thing of like marking the days where I get anxious, and they're always in clumps. Like it happens, like I'll have like an anxious week and
Oh,
not like just one
yeah.
day. And so it's like if I if I'm anxious once, I'm likely to be anxious again. So before that even starts, like making some changes. Yeah, it is like warning bells.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned about tracking. I have
Hmm.
this app on my phone that is called, I think it's just called Tracker, and it's nice because it just pops up a notification and like an iOS notification, and then I can force touch the notification and it pops up like I can log my mood in the notification, which is really good.
Mm.
And and during like periods where I'm like really dark, it always feels to me like the darkness has been there for months when it's really just been
Mm.
there for like 3 days. And being able to
Hmm.
like get the facts and look back in the log and see that, hey, I feel good most of the time. And normally when these things happen, the darkness hangs around for a couple of days. That has been
Hmm. Hmm.
I second that so much that it has been so valuable to me.
Yeah, it's so important to get out of your head. Yeah, it's like all these situations. It's like your mind is going against you, and then it makes you question yourself and your reality and who you are, and that's terrifying. But there's so many tools now that help you do this that, yeah, it's so important to do that.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can find this tracker app and link it in the description because people were asking for it. It's really
Hmm.
because no, I've never heard anybody mention this app. It's so
Hmm.
it's just tracker and mood energy diary. It's
Hmm.
let's see, copy link and it's like
There's been a little bit of talk from Corfasti about the difference between good stress and bad stress,
oh yeah.
which I think is an important thing to note on too, because there's like the manageable stress of like, oh, this is good and I'm feeling like I'm being challenged and slightly pushed out of my comfort zone versus like I'm way out of my comfort zone. I don't know what the heck I'm doing.
Oh yeah.
Uh, yeah, those are important feelings to hone into because it's also like one can kind of lead to the other, where like the good stress all of a sudden becomes really bad stress, and it feels different for every person.
It's yeah, but it's. I often feel like I tend to fight against stress when it comes. Like
Mm.
I don't
Mhm.
want it to be there, and
Mhm.
that like it's just better to like roll with it, especially when it comes to talks. It's better to roll with the nervousness and view it as your friend, that it's here to like put you in an elevated state. And yeah,
Mhm.
you wish that you could relax and you wish that you could escape this and you wish that you just could sleep because you need to sleep. But hey, you're stressed, like, and it probably like is better to, rather than just lying around and flipping in bed, it's better to just walk up and work a little bit on the slides because it will make you feel better and you can't sleep anyway.
Yeah, and the thing you said about like I feel like stress is I like how you said like you ride the stress or you fight the stress because most of the time I feel like when there's stress there's a reward at the
Yeah.
end because you're typically stressed about a thing, and then once you do the thing, then it feels really good.
Thank you so much for watching. If you like this clip, it's a outtake from a live stream that I do pretty much every Monday morning, sometimes alone, sometimes with guests. You can find it at twitch.tv/funfunfunction if you want to follow and get a notification in the Twitch app when we go live on Monday mornings. I am MPJ. Until next Monday morning, stay curious.